Last week I launched a boot camp, which is 7 steps from mindset all the way to running the acquisition that you've done. And at the end of that week 1, which was an hour and 41 minutes, it was a long session. It was almost half the time was Q&As. But what was interesting is that almost all those questions were centered around how do you take action? How do you actually put the QLA process that Dan Pena created more than 25 years ago, when I met him back in 1993, into actual action so you can realize the success that you are expecting to get from that QLA methodology. And the overriding thing that you have to do is take action. Massive action, that's the key. Go back and listen, and I reference it a lot. The podcast 23 and podcast 54 with Sean. And you'll see that that is something he did over and over and over again. Was he certain of how to do it? No. Did he know that you had to follow the steps? Absolutely, so do that. And one of the best tools that I know of, and you can refer to it in a couple of ways, is the Ivy Lee method or the self-journal method, which is, I think, the modern version of the Ivy Lee method. And what that is every night you look at what is going to happen the next day. And you take a piece of paper, or you can use a self-journal if you want to buy it, and you write down the appointments you have, just like you normally would, on one side of the paper. Write down what you're grateful for. 3 things is fine. On the next side of the page or another page, write down what your big goal is. Then, thinking about the following day, write down the 3 things, or 6 things if you do Ivy Lee, things that will move the needle the most. Now, if you have a day job, your priorities may not be the same as your employer's priorities, but go through that and say, okay, this is going to move the needle, this is going to move the needle, and actually put a time next to it. If you work and you got to get up at 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning to do those things, fine. That's some way that you can control your own time. Then take a look at what you've done for that day. What did you actually accomplish? What lessons did you learn? Usually that's about productivity and what you could have done better. And write down those things. And then at the end of the day, again, the 3 things that you're grateful for. But if you take the time the night before to write the things that will move the needle the most, and then the following day you're strict about that appointment, just like any other appointment, and you work those in orders, you're going to be surprised at how much progress you make. If you don't know the steps, we finished week 1 of the boot camp, but all of those are recorded. You can go back and catch week 1 and then join us live for week 2, which is this coming Wednesday and forward. So I'd encourage you to do that. It was very, very well attended, better than I thought it would be actually. And we covered a lot of ground. I asked for feedback from everybody. There were a couple suggestions on how to make it better, but the feedback was exceptionally good, which I'm pleased to see. So, Ivy Lee method, self-journal method, either one will work. But take the time the night before to plan what moves the needle the most, and then work on those activities.